Let's have a look. You're not very tech. Can you, Claire, are you on? There you are. Hi.
Hey, hi.
We made it. Oh my God. We're such tech Luddites, aren't we? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I've printed stuff off. I printed off the questions I got, and I got your input as well, so we can like get cracking. So yeah, I thought maybe you could introduce yourself, because I don't think anyone who follows me probably puts the name Claire to your green room and understands what you do or how we work together. So
Okay. Well, I primarily work with musicians and writers and music producers and artists, and usually in their development and kind of maintenance of their productivity, performance, and creativity, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And obviously, this last year has been rather testing for all of us. But, you know, with my wonderful people, we've kind of all worked out ways that have been working to keep productive and positive and happy and spontaneous. But obviously, with your input, I mean, we work on, you know, keeping people healthy for touring, plus lots of other different things.
I like the analogy of, like, sports people and racehorses are pumped full of vitamins and given the best care, but musicians are not given that like element of investment, I don't think, in their like longevity, their health, their mental health particularly. And that's why I've always been like so keen to see a change in this. I do have a lot of friends in the industry, and I've seen the struggles people go through. So it's been amazing to do some work with you on this and actually get the message out. And hopefully we can kind of also removing the stigma of thinking that, you know, you need help, but also all of the simple stuff that you can do that I do, that you know, and we can get people on board. And when we do that, we have amazing results. Just like the simple changes you can make with your diet. And also, you know, I love giving people herbs. Not just,
all your potions.
Not just the potions for like the magic. Not just the esoteric potions, but also the actual, you know.
No, I know. I mean, it makes a huge difference. And like you say, you know, a lot of money gets invested into recording artists. And I've been banging on everyone's kind of drum, on my own drum, for the last 7 or 8 years about this. That why would you invest so much money and then neglect their health and well-being? Because if their mind isn't healthy and the body isn't healthy, then your investment is going to go down the tubes. Unless all you're relying on
Britney Spears, prime example. I mean,
well, unless you rely on, you know, call me cynical, but sometimes you see the, you know, the majors, certainly in the past, were cashing in on the sort of untimely deaths of people that weren't rescued in time. And you can't rescue everybody, you know. There are some, and I respect those that make the choices they do, but I think with a bit of support they might think otherwise.
Yeah, it's interesting that when we talked, I broached the idea of like we should actually talk about this, because loads of people, you know, it's interesting, you've seen loads of people's creativity thrive, and I've seen a lot of people's mental health like take a complete and utter. Been, and then, you know, I mean, just the lack of support on the NHS, it's just been astounding. So I've been like doing a lot of work with people to really stop them going back to addictive behaviors that they had before. People I'm seeing a lot more disordered eating happening, and I'm seeing, you know, a lot of people just needing additional stress because they're stuck at home, you know, not being able to do anything, go out, do their usual, have a break from their kids, have a routine, be able to exercise the way they used to. unless you live out of London like you, which is, you know, the dream.
Yeah, I mean, the people I work with tend to live a fairly kind of insular life anyway.
Yeah,
a lot
I know.
of time is spent in studios.
With no sunlight.
But no sunlight, and you know, and not being able to travel, you know, this whole kind of I couldn't possibly write in a studio without the other writers in the room with me, and then having to use things like Zoom to do it, where you've got a time lag and kind of the vibe isn't the same. But actually, you know, a lot of people, we're humans, we adapt and we get used to it, and there are other ways which hopefully we can both share today. And
yeah,
you know, and if anyone's got any questions.
Yeah, if you've got live questions, because I've got a list here of things people ask. It's really interesting. Some of the questions I got weren't actual phrases. They were just like 2 words.
Well, that's 2 more words than I got from people.
I guess like the big one was, you know, asking, loads of people were like, what can I take to help me get out of a rut? And what herbs that will kind of stop intrusive thoughts and anxiety. And you know, I always have to kind of push people back and say it's not just about taking something. There's loads of foundational work that if you want to actually change the biochemistry, you need to look at how you're eating. You need to look at the kind of situational side of things as well. And so I always have to kind of push people back and say, right, we really need to focus on like, how are you eating? Are you chewing your food? Are you constipated? Are you even eating the right food? And you know, are you actually assimilating nutrients? And then it all boils down to, well, actually, if you don't have these nutrients, you're not going to be able to run your neurotransmitter like breakdown properly. You're not going to be able to even make neurotransmitters properly. It's just something as simple as like protein. I mean, I'm a vegetarian, vegan, and I really, you know, I have to really remind myself not to just eat vegetables, because I don't, and like, you know, when I do eat protein, I start, you know, actually making a concerted effort to up my protein levels. I notice that my dreams come back, which is like, and I'm like, okay, so yeah, that's my gauge of, okay, I'm not eating like as well as I could be because of, you know, work and stress and traveling, although that's not happening now. So even like someone in my position who does this for a living, you know, we have to, you know, take a step back and look at our own behaviors.
Yeah,
and I don't think that
you have to take responsibility for it. I mean, it's all one thing moaning about it, but actually you saying I'm stuck in a rut, which you do hear people kind of saying, oh, it's just not getting any better, and it's not, and they're not stepping away from it. It's
or
like,
doing anything about it.
Well, if you look at your body, when you're in that frame of mind and you look at your body and it's just looking down and it's all grumpy and everything's terrible, it's like, well, just step away from that for a moment and kind of imagine a CCTV camera looking at that. And you just go, oh my God, if that was an actor, they are acting someone who's stuck in a rut and really depressed and really fed up. And if you step away from it, even that feeling, and imagine yourself being really happy and jolly and silly, your body starts tricking its brain into, oh, we're actually happy now. And that is the beginning of starting to get out of this rut, I think. And then you can start to explore, well, what am I eating? What am I doing? You know, I've had people saying, oh, I'm so snappy with everyone. I'm so miserable. I'm so grumpy. And then you look at their alcohol intake, and they've been drinking a lot more. It's like, oh, really? That's a big surprise.
I just feel like, you know, balance your blood sugar. Really easy. If you're eating fruit, have it with seeds or nuts. Like, then, I mean, alcohol is like, if you can get people to do it with their diet and see the benefits, I do find that people are kind of more inclined to make changes elsewhere because they feel motivated. But actually, that's bringing up alcohol. You know, thinking about the things that really affect mood. Alcohol being a massive like serotonin antagonist. Vitamin D, like what you're saying about everyone being inside. You can't make serotonin without vitamin D. No. Light, you need light exposure. So these are the like three key factors. And actually, everyone needs vitamin D right now because of what's going on in the pandemic. It's one of the most protective things I can think of with my patients. Like, who has had COVID, who hasn't, who had it like not very badly. Even just those simple things, and you start thinking about what compounds in foods and what supplements are going to be helpful for people to not just manage the kind of the physiological things that can occur in this pandemic, but also the mental health repercussions.
Yeah, no, completely. And that potential to become addicted to things if you start to do them too often. I think people don't realize that it's a very slippery slope that can happen very quickly to people. But I would say, you mentioning going outside and getting some vitamin D, I've noticed with people who are saying, I'm not coming up with creative ideas, and they're feeling under pressure to be creative, which is like a recipe for absolute disaster. Quite often it's in front of the computer screen, and certainly while we're locked indoors, how many feet in front of us have we got before there's a brick wall? Which affects your field of invention, where you create, you have your vision of things. And when you go out for walks, now I think it's 20 minutes we're allowed. Is it 20 minutes?
I don't know. I walk to my office is 20 minutes, so I'm breaking.
Okay, well, you better watch that. During that time, what you really need to be doing is stretching all your senses, because, focal vision, which is what we tend to use when we're in problematic thoughts, because when your eyes are kind of pointing down and I can't think of any new ideas, because we're indoors, we're kind of using focal vision all the time. If you go out just even for your 20 minutes and you try and look for a bird and the top of a tree and then the clouds, and God forbid there's a plane going by, which seems rare as well at the moment, watch it go across the skyline, because then you're starting to stretch the muscles in your eyes. And that, because the eyes operate as like the arrow on your desktop, if you start to open that up, ideas start to come. You're not pointing at that one folder anymore. You're looking at what is in the back of my head. And it's exactly the same with your hearing. It's like, just use your ears, pick out, a dog barking, or, someone calling someone, or a taxi going by, or because we're just not using our senses. Being stuck indoors, the amount of hours we're stuck in for now, we're really neglecting them. And smelling, we're going to be, it's not long before we get to spring. It might feel like a long way off, but actually it's not that far off. And it's like, we start to smell grass, or flowers and spring kind of atmospheres. We need to be aware of all of that and indulge those senses.
But I just think even having exposure to light when it's present, and that's one thing I really hate about the artificial light in offices, and I try not to have mine on ever. I mean, it's not on now. I've just got this mini light on at the moment, so I often look like I'm sitting in a dark room, but it's just because I really hate artificial light strips. And the other thing I found really helpful for kind of opening up ideas, just on a more kind of herbal level as well, apart from the idea of having a ritual, so getting away from the space where you do drudgery, basically. So I have like different areas, because I've got 2 different floors where I am. I have an apothecary room, and then I have the office. And if I want to be creative, I come and sit and work down here in the apothecary. I also have rituals around smudging and drinking specific teas that kind of open up the thought process. So like, I'm really big into tulsi and rosemary. And if I really want to open up my dreams, Blue Lotus and mugwort. But the last time I keep having these dreadful lucid dreams where I'm basically driving to work early, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not what I want to be happening in my dreams. I feel like I worked an extra 8 to 10 hours a day. So I think I need to do some work on that before I start doing that again.
You want to watch that.
Yeah, but actually the other thing I've noticed is like when you sing, like starting to sing, because I drive now as well, whereas before it was buses all the way. And I've noticed that when you sing, like you open up a whole other world of kind of, for me anyway, I've noticed that there's just a big difference in how I process information and how I process the information around me and my surroundings. So it's like about not just using plants medicinally, but using them to help with the ritual and using the right plants with the right properties to kind of channel, your thoughts and use that kind of intuition to have the creative process happen without you really trying.
Oh, and with you mentioning about singing,
Yeah,
I've had a lot of people, because they're not communicating with people in the way that they were. I've been saying, reconnect to your voice, go and sing in the shower and start to listen, enjoy your voice, even if, like me, you have the worst voice on the planet. Being listened to, listening to yourself is okay. I mean, as appalling as it is when I listen to myself, it's fine.
Yeah. No, the dancing as well. Thank you, Samira. I often dance on my own, and I don't care if the people in the office opposite can see me. I have little routines. Like when I make herbs, I'm often dancing or listening to really heavy metal.
Well, that's good to know. I'm just trying to think. So there was one other thing when I've been working with a lot of the writers, because again, they're not able to write with other writers. It's very difficult because of all the restrictions. And I know it's not the same all over the world, but what I had recommended, and they've all been pretty productive, is to use their imagination. So the kind of as if this other person was there, what they would be saying. And actually they've really enjoyed it, because they've taken it another step further and inviting kind of imaginary dead songwriters in. So David Bowie's whoever, and suddenly, it'll be, oh, okay, well, I started thinking, what chords would they begin with? How would they start the song? What kind of words would they be using? And suddenly it's like they're almost writing the song. Yes, it might be slightly in that style more than they would normally do, but it's becoming quite an interesting way of utilizing this time alone and using our imagination. If you think about when we were children, the last time we were all locked up and couldn't go out when we wanted to was when we were kids.
I was going to say, you went
when we were kids, we would imagine, we used our imagination an awful lot more. And it's like, well, just bring that. I mean, I hate using psychology terms, but it's that kind of inner child thing.
Yeah.
Of, okay, well, I'm on my own. When I was a kid, I didn't have an imaginary tea party with the teddy bears well, if you're a songwriter, it's like, well, invite, Beethoven and Bach and, whoever you want, really. Prince, get Prince round. Why wouldn't you? And then start to think about what kind of structure, what they would be saying to you. And that works.
Like, didn't you say some of them have been nominated for Grammys?
Yeah. I mean, they're all doing incredibly well, because it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to let this be. This doesn't need to be a problem. Actually, this could be a kind of new way of thinking about writing.
Yeah.
And actually not, obviously deadlines people feel like deadlines are shifting because obviously releases get put back. But if you look at, I think it's 3% of a songwriter's catalogue only ever makes them any money. The rest is kind of in the bin. So actually, the more songs you're writing, the better. You need an arsenal of songs, and just keep practicing. And there are people that obviously that they're an anomaly, and they will have a greater number of songs that are successful. And there's nothing stopping any of the writers that I work with thinking like that.
Just thinking about that, and like the idea of the importance of routine, even if you don't have one. Like even if your day doesn't necessarily, like you're not bound to a routine. I think that creating a routine also just will make you productive, even if it's not like a work day.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I I'm a great believer in knowing what day I think I know what I would like to be doing. So if it's a thinking, coming up with ideas, you know, if you and I kind of looking
when
at
we do our brainstormings and things,
exactly.
we're very productive.
But my thing is always put a hat on in case my ideas escape my head. And the hat kind of, like, this came from when I was a kid. I used to wear a sombrero when I did my homework in case I lost my concentration. And, you know, it's having those, I mean, in NLP, for example, I think that will be called an anchor, where it's like, you know, you put that on, it's like, oh, I'm in creative mode now. And it's okay, you know, there's no rules here. I mean, we've got to be making up our own rules, but it's identifying what works for us.
Yeah, my thing is I always have a pencil and a notepad in the car, and that's where I come up with my best ideas. It's really weird because I'm always in traffic now, so just always, and like I always stop at the wrong time, and like, and people get a beep, but I'm like, I have to write it down now or I'm gonna lose it. So yeah, I think that's like having that routine and ritual, but also allocating time, because if you don't, if you think that you're going to give the whole day to something, when you have like 4 things that you need to try and do that day, you will take the whole day to do it. Because
of course,
you haven't respected the boundaries of you know, that's like something I need to work on a bit with my patients.
Well, I do also think people are starting to neglect, because you're working from home. It's a bit like mufti day, or just not getting.
Oh yeah, I'm not one for tracksuit. You know, all the time. Look at me. I'm wearing leather. No one's seen me today.
Going out there.
I look like I'm going to a club.
It'll cost you £800 from now on. Yeah, I just think we need to really value our relaxed time and our rest time. And, you know, for me, I work with a lot of people in America, and it would be very easy to keep going through the night. You know, oh, great, somebody else is up. And actually just going, right, okay, I work in this part of the house during the day, and then I go over there, and then I don't come back to this part of the house until tomorrow morning again. And I think it's just having the separation, and then not, you know, if someone emails you at 3 o'clock in the morning, just because they can't sleep, you don't have to get back to them.
Yeah, but you're not going to check your email at 3 in the morning.
No, I don't. But, you know, people I work with they're getting emails through from other insomniacs. And it's like, no, you need to, you know, I would never say, because I would sound like a really, really old person, which I appreciate. I'm pretty old, but
no, not old.
You can't turn everything off, but, you know, you in the back of your head, it's like, I'm not going to reply with high quality information or respond correctly. So actually, I'm going to watch a film. I've watched so many films and box sets and God knows what, just so I have that break in between.
But I'm not sure that's necessarily the best break. I think you need to, like, the amount of time we spend on Zoom and FaceTimes, like, I think we need to get away from the screen.
Well, it's true, but there's, you know, I can't play piano, and the piano I do have has stopped working, so I can't be doing that. You know, I keep threatening to start drawing and doing.
Drawing.
I mean, I end up writing.
I just saw that Nishta's popped on, and I saw, like, Nishta's a colleague of mine, and I'm like, oh, she just randomly, she posted this kind of very fancy, beautiful painting that she just casually done. I was like, what?
Wow.
She's an artist, and she never told me. So it's like when you suddenly realise all these people that you work with suddenly have these incredible talents. Well,
that's it. That's exactly it. And it's like, well, this actually is an opportunity to rediscover things that, you know, you may have had a teacher go, oh, you'll never make a living doing this, you know, painting or acting or whatever. And it's like, or writing. Well, all right, well, we're all stuck here. So if it brought us pleasure and we know we've got a career, or we've got something else that we do, why wouldn't we be doing that?
Yeah, I don't have that kind of mind though. If someone says, oh, you know, if I want to do something, I'll find, oh my God, Nishta, you're amazing at painting. I'm I'm just thinking, like, I always think there's got to be a way to do that the way you want it to. Like, there'll always be a solution. So I always find a way. If I want to do something, I'll find a way to do it. Like, I never wanted to be a singer, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of rediscovered enjoying cooking. And actually, I mean, sometimes it's really annoying when you're working, and particularly if I'm working late because of the American clients, because I'm in England. But the break to kind of just take your mind off things and go through the routine and the ritual of cooking,
Yeah,
and smelling the ingredients, and then, you know, sharing it, enjoying it. And for those who are on their own, you know, then you're spoiling yourself.
that's actually a really good point. That's something that I've noticed. People who are normally touring all the time are suddenly saying, yeah, I started cooking. Because I always say, okay, if you're not used to the kitchen, start with some recipes, get some Riverford, get some Mindful Chef or something. Maybe just try that out, because then you don't have to be overwhelmed by the idea of buying spices and ingredients.
Yeah.
But then, like, they all just get into it, and I'm like, how are you doing with your recipes? It's like, actually, yeah, I'm cooking for myself now. Like, I don't even need the recipes anymore.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of amazing on that front. People are actually eating proper meals. Breakfast is a thing now for most people.
Yeah.
You know, not relying on coffee, and actually getting normal sleep patterns, because that for me is the biggest dampener of creativity, and it just so happens to tie in with most creative entertainment kind of professions. You know, if you're staying up late and you're playing in a club until 4 or 5 in the morning, that's like the biggest thing that's going to completely suppress and kind of not just destroy your circadian rhythm, but it's gonna impact your creativity. Mm-hmm. And that's what I find, like, a little bit, you know, we've got to find a different way of doing things so that people aren't suffering for their art.
No, but, you know, the way the economy is for performers, you know, it's still live is where they make their money, and which is why so many are in such a terrible way now. I mean, I'm actually starting, which is really good, to be working with labels now, preparing people for, we're looking at Q3, Q4 for getting ready to go back live again. So it's nice to know that people realize that it's a bit like exercise. You know, no one's done any touring for a long time now, and it's going to feel like such a stretch going back to it.
I don't know, people are touring in New Zealand right now.
Yes, but that's New Zealand.
I know. I saw a clip of a bunch of people in New Zealand dancing to that song by, like, I can't remember who the band was, but it's How Bizarre, and I just thought, yeah, I wouldn't want to go to that gig.
We will get back there. It's just that I do think everyone's going to have to be prepared, and it's such a great opportunity, you know, to. I always kind of treat it in the way, well, we both have. It's like, well, you don't say to Olympians, you know what, for the next 4 years, don't do anything. But 2 weeks before the Olympics, we're going to train like mad.
Yeah.
And that's how we've treated it in the music business. It's like they don't need to rehearse for months and months and months and months and months, but actually preparing their bodies and getting them ready to go back out on the road again is really important.
Yeah, I agree.
As we've talked about so many times.
Yeah, because I always say, look, is there any way you can just take 3 months off or 6 months off so we can just build your resilience and get your immune system working properly and just get you actually eating well? They never have that
time, and we do. We have that time now, and before they know it, it becomes a habit, and then they're doing it. They're doing it naturally. It's kind of, and they won't want to go back, because you and I know the kind of the stress hormones that they're running. I mean, part of that, you know, the kind of nerves and everything, one can either prevent them or they almost become addicted to the nerves.
Well, I think if you have you know, if you thrive on pressure and cortisol, like I definitely do, but I've learned to manage it really well because I take so many adaptogens. And I eat well, you know. I look after myself in those areas so that when I do have very intense periods of stress, my body doesn't react badly, you know. You do start to see, like, actually, this is one of the big things I a few people got in touch about this, and they were asking about, like, you know, what's the connection between like depression and anxiety and mental health, and like how can I stop feeling overwhelmed by everything. Again, diet, diet, supplements, nutrition, eating phytonutrients. Like, you know, even just something as simple as like the connection between stomach acid and stress, right? You know, when you're in a period of stress, or you have a disease state that's causing a physical stress, you won't break down protein, you won't break down minerals, and you won't use B12. These are all like copper, zinc, iron, magnesium. These are all absolutely crucial for your brain to function properly, for your neurotransmitters to be made and broken down, along with all the other vitamins involved. So, you know, it's not just about, you know, serotonin. We need tryptophan. If you don't have enough, serotonin is making tryptophan. We need tyramine. If we don't have enough tyramine, it's not just dopamine that's going to suffer. Your thyroid's going to suffer. Your whole metabolic processes will start to become sluggish. So, you know, the connection between the thyroid and depression, and kind of different kind of presentations of depression. Do you have enough, you know, serotonin to even use your kind of, for your gut to be kind of digesting your food properly? Because we use most of our serotonin in our gut. So it's just about educating people and making them realize it's, you know, you do have to maintain these practices. You know, stress does have a very significant impact on your body. So unless you get a handle on even the basics by fixing it, this is just going to be a pattern that keeps repeating itself.
Yeah, completely. But you know, this is why preparing now, learning about this, and I know you've written up a really interesting handout, beautifully done. So I would say anyone keen to learn more, they should get onto your website. And
oh yeah, there is a link to it in my bio, actually, a mental health handout. It's just about, you know, what the different neurotransmitters are and how you might feel if they're low or high. You know, a bit about nutrition, like key nutrients, herbs, that kind of thing. So it's just very like broad, basic information, but I just thought it was useful for people if they just haven't got the information. And actually, what I find very interesting is that loads of people are really interested in the brain and how it works.
Yeah, I know. You start talking about it, and they're like, "What? I had no idea."
So I really like the idea of people just kind of understanding, you know, what's going on up there and how it's not just affecting their brain, but it's affecting their overall health and their behaviors. So, you know, compulsive behaviors, not being able to focus, all of these things, I'm like, we can fix that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing. It's, you know, when someone comes to you and they're really struggling to focus, or they're really struggling with anxiety, and you're like, God, I see so clearly how all of this can be resolved. And I just don't think that someone will believe me unless I explain to them and show them the mechanisms of how it all works. So I'm really big into explaining to people what the pathways are, how I think they're going wrong for people, and how they can fix them.
Well, it's biology. It's biology and behaviour, isn't it?
Yeah, but I also think that there is a, you know, when someone does have significant mental health issues, most of the people I know who have, you know, bipolar, or, you know, they're schizophrenic, they're also incredibly gifted, creative individuals. So it's not about kind of treating them as problems that need to be eliminated. It's about regulating the neurochemistry, like, so that we can help people reach their potential without dampening down the things that.
No, I mean, I think if we manage them well, they are the gifts that they've been given, you know. And it's the same with Asperger's and autism. These are not, we see them as problems, and actually I would say nearly all my community are on the spectrum, or I have worked with a lot of bipolar people, and actually, as long as it's managed well, we can get the best out of that. That's the key to the creativity, actually. And I'm not saying you need that to be a creative person, but it certainly explains why you know, I will have people saying, oh, they're so annoying. Actually, I won't use the language that I hear, but it's like they're so annoying, they're a bit diva-ish, and they're just difficult to work with. And actually, the world is really confusing for them, and it's our duty around the business to kind of try and understand a little bit about it. And, you know, and I think someone like you being able to explain the biology and the chemistry that's going on for those guys, and I know you've helped me many times around these subjects, you know, what they should be eating, what is good for them, and what they really definitely need to avoid.
Yeah. Sugar.
Yes, sugar for sure. But I think, you know, generally, I mean, certainly from my client kind of group of people, just being able to talk, being able to understand that the world, it feels scary and unmanageable at the moment, but you can shrink it down. And if you start to create these routines, and you start to about self-care, and I don't mean selfish care, because I think we tend to live in this world of it's all about me, and actually we can do acts of goodness for other people, you know, but
Of course.
voluntary work is, you know, if you have spare time, there's lots to be done. And if you feel, I have a lot of people that are feeling guilty at the moment because they're not nurses or doctors, are like, oh, I'm useless, I'm not contributing. Well, yeah, maybe staying indoors is the contribution at the moment, but there are other things that you can be getting on with. And with the creativity, it's like, just don't be too hard on yourself, you know.
That's the big thing. There's a lot of pressure that you should be doing something with this time of, if you're on furlough, if you're on lockdown, that you need to be achieving something. And I think that for some people, what they really need to be doing is just decompressing and resting.
Yeah,
and like addressing, like, just finally, like, and also it's quite scary because if you've basically been working to mask trauma, like dealing with trauma, then having this time is just incredibly difficult. And like I said before, like, mental health support in Britain particularly is not great right now. Like, you know,
it's probably better than America, I would say.
Well, I don't know. I think that when you're in a free healthcare system, then
I think it's changing. You know, I think, you know, I've said it to other people. We seem to know more about space than we do about the brain, and that is changing. There's more information coming. We're starting to understand how the brain really affects our behaviours and everything. I mean, we've kind of treated it as this thing, this blob that's on the top of a spine, and it just kind of operates things. But it's so much more than that.
Yeah, going back to that point about us not understanding the brain, it's like what I find quite bothersome is you know, we're using medications that work on specific things, but that sometimes people don't respond well. They don't have, you know, their depression's still there, and I'm like, it's not, you know, the medication's not doing its work. So I have lots of kind of issues around inappropriate medication. I'm not anti-medication by any means, but I think that it's not just as simple as correcting serotonin, you know.
No, I don't think so either. And I don't think, you know, many people that I've worked with who are bipolar have been prescribed antidepressants, and we both know that that's about the last thing you should give someone with bipolar. And you know, traditional psychotherapy, for me personally, I mean, it's always good to go and talk to someone, but it's quite a big business, and I find things like cognitive behavioral therapy and the more behavioral side of kind of how you overcome things, which is the area that you and I both work in, actually a lot more kind of potent than repeating trauma again and again and again every week and paying to do it.
I'm more of a fan of the kind of more esoteric healing methodologies.
I know you are.
No, I find that, you know, everyone has their different what they respond well to. Like, when I've done talking therapy in the past, I've just gotten really impatient. You know, when I notice that the therapist isn't listening to me, or they're asking questions that don't see the whole Aspergic thought process. like I like things to be in a certain order, like things to happen, and if I see things that aren't done very well, I get kind of irritated, and it makes me feel like the therapy is not going to work. So that's why I have, for me, more the talking therapy side of things doesn't tend to work so well, whereas the more indigenous healing practices I've always responded really well to.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, I quite like a mixture of everything, and it just depends on how people process information, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do think, rather than seeing this as the worst thing that's ever happened to any of us, it kind of, I'm kind of hoping that maybe in 2 or 3 years' time we go, God, I wish we could have a little bit of that time back again. Suddenly our diaries will be full again, and we'll be traveling, and everything will start to click back.
Yeah.
And actually this kind of, I know lots of people have said, I've had the best year of my life. I've kind of, the value system has got back into line again. What not noticing things, not having the time to care about very much. And
I think it does put things into perspective in terms of like what is actually important, who are the people that you genuinely want to reach out to, and who kind of has fallen a bit by the wayside.
Yeah, and I think even with the American election going the way it has, it's interesting how it's a more, from my perspective, obviously, this sort of more nurturing, caring, considerate kind of, hang on a minute, we've got to slow everything down, and we have to repair. There's a lot of repair, it's not going to happen overnight, but at least it's acknowledging repair is needed, where before we were living in the old days of, hey, boom, bust, and it's not sustainable. And actually, even hearing people talking about buying clothes and should I be buying this and should I be buying that, and now they don't want anything.
There's nowhere to wear anything except
it's like
office.
Actually, is it that important, really? And you've had more time to read about the way people who are working in the factories to provide the clothes for all these big designers. It's like, actually, I don't want to be involved with all of that.
No, it's like you said to me the other day, like it's really made you think about your carbon footprint this whole time.
Yeah.
And it's the same with me. I definitely think I can fly less and do more Zoom. I don't think I can handle more Zooms.
But again, it's like, so we are thinking more creatively. It's in that respect, it's like, well, maybe I don't need to travel so much, and maybe I can engage people in a different way. And when the first lockdown happened, I thought immediately, oh, I'm not going to work for a year. I won't be able to do the job I do because I'm not in front of the person. I need to be with them. But it's just meant I've had to get better at the language that I use and my listening skills. I'm not looking at how they're moving as much.
Actually, that's one thing. Like the difference between when I see a patient in my clinic and when I see someone on Zoom. I mean, I've been doing Zoom appointments forever anyway, and I've learned to do like the neurological exam and everything online. But I find that actually when you're seeing someone on video versus in person in a mask, it's actually better to see them in video, because being able to like monitor facial expressions and understand the body language just is much easier to do than when someone's sitting in front of you and their face is covered and you can't even see if they're smiling.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I'm like, that's why I'm kind of saying, I'm much more doing the more online at the moment. But there are certain things that I prefer to do, like if I'm looking at someone's
but
skin.
I do think we're going to take a lot that we've learned from here, and that's like I'm saying to you with the writers that have kind of adapted to, well, how am I going to write if there isn't another writer in the room, where they would normally want, some don't need that, but a lot of writers do like to write with other writers. And it's like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Some have adapted to the slight time lag with Zoom, those kind of sessions, and this other writing with other people that you would never even get in the room with. It's like, because the kind of writers I work with, they obviously explore and examine like painters. It's like, well, what is the style of this person that I look towards? well, you're never going to get to write with them, so you might as well imagine what it would be like to work with them. And it's like, just grab that imagination that we had as a child, I think, and run with it.
There's a tea for that. Lime blossom is the inner child herb.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So drinking that helps you access your inner child.
Amazing. So I just to kind of, I think we should probably wrap up because we've been nattering for a while. It's very nice to see Ollie and Alex, the French original, on here.
Hi Alex.
So you've written this amazing document which guides people through herbs.
Yeah, no, it's more just a little basic intro to stuff, because I think a lot of people don't really understand herbal medicine even. And for me, like, I remember someone saying to me the other day, like, oh, can you make me something strong? And I'm like, well, no, because you're breastfeeding, so it has to be gentle, it has to be aligned with, it cannot interact, it cannot be toxic to your baby. And I'm going to use like teas, and they're like, oh God, teas aren't strong. And I'm like, actually, they can be pretty potent. There's a doctor in France who does like foot baths, and I really like doing giving people herbs to put in the bath as well. And then again, there's that whole idea of ritual and self-care, and doing something for yourself that's going to benefit you and those around you, because if you're happy, everyone else around you is happy. But it's just about actually incorporating plants and, you know, different forms into your way of doing things. So you can actually make a tea like a healing mechanism for you, you know, just by the ritual itself, making sure that the dose is nice and medicinal and strong, and using the right herbs at the time. And, you know, there's so many amazing plants that work on the brain. So like you've got rosemary. I mean, these are things that grow in your garden. Even sage is considered a really good, like, pineal gland kind of opener. What else? Like, what other herbs? So
what if people don't have gardens, or they're like me and kill plants by just simply...
Yeah, you can buy them in the supermarket, or you can have them dry. So lavender, like tulsi, like there's some really good brands like Pucker that make really good ones, but you need like 3 or 4 tea bags. And then I make stuff for my patients as well. Particularly if someone's like, you know, we're dealing with multiple problems. So if they've got an irritable gut, for example, and they've got like a mood, you know, they're very anxious all the time, and they've got a bit of eczema, then we can really tailor stuff for them. And, you know, like, you know, it's never just about creativity or mood. There's always lots of other things that you need to think about.
I mean, it's never just that one thing. That's kind of the icing on the cake, and then you start to go back down, and what are you doing? How are you...
But also, just, I think people need to be aware that as they start kind of prioritizing their health or looking after themselves, suddenly you can start peeling back layers of discomfort, and like weird feelings or weird rashes and things can happen, and it's fine. It doesn't mean that it's bad or something's bad for you. It just means that you're processing through some stuff. You know, there's the kind of toxic burden type die-off reaction, but it's not always physical. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes you might find that you have a really horrible angry outburst and you scream at someone, and then it's just suppressed emotion that you've been holding on to.
And can I just ask you, because I've had a lot of people recently mention they are really struggling to sleep.
Oh yeah, sleep-wise.
What would you recommend to help with sleep?
So again, this boils down to digestion and being able to digest protein, particularly serotonin, and then you methylate that to make melatonin, which tells your body, like, actually it's nighttime, you need to go to sleep. So you need to basically digest food. You need to support your detox pathways and get enough B vitamins, folate, B12. You need to see light at the right times. I mean, that's like super important. And then, you know, sleep hygiene, getting off your computer, having like a good relaxation type ritual before bed, not eating too late, trying not to drink alcohol at night, because that just causes your blood sugar to go all over the place, and making sure that your room's not too hot, just like basic stuff like that. And then, you know, I like to give people like golden milk type drinks. I've recently got really into rose powder. So like mixing rose with pearl and having it in a hot drink for your you know, for your skin, and vegan collagen type things, and just like, or teas like, you know, verbena. Sorry, what's the name in English? Vervain, and valerian for some people.
I can't have valerian.
No, I can't either. It's like I've been to a club and I've danced for hours and I'm stimulated by the music. It's hilarious. Lavender, again, I find stimulating, but it's very good for some people. Passion flower is one of my favorite plants, and California poppy is another big favorite. California poppy is really good for people who can't switch off, who like have repeated thoughts going over and over and over at night. It's not got opium in it.
Well, that's good to know.
And actually, that's another interesting one. So, you know, when you cut lettuce and there's that latex kind of milk.
Yes.
So that's actually an opioid like type compound. So technically, if you were to lick loads of lettuce latex, you'd probably get sleepy. Or you could just drink wild lettuce.
Well, thanks for that. I'll start milking the lettuces later.
I could just imagine like chopping up those lettuces and like licking them all and then throwing them in the bin. I would never do that. I do love a lettuce though. I do love that bit of the lettuce. And then like things for daytime, I think, because you've not got to look, it's not just about what can you do at night. It's about the whole day. The stress response needs to be regulated during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're waking up anxious, then probably your blood sugar's all over the place. And you know, there needs to be a better regulation of sleep. So it's about, you know, waking up, doing some breathing exercises, making sure that you start the day like with positive thought. I know it sounds really cheesy, but it really works.
No, well, I always say to people, you know, for a lot of people that do yoga, I never used to respond to yoga moves because it was somebody else's body shapes. And so what I do with people is get them to replay like happy times and show me what their body was doing while they were in this happy state, and then to make up their own little dance in the morning as if it was kind of a yoga. It's like personalized yoga with your own body memory.
Happiness yoga.
So you know, the minute you start looking up and, you know, imagining that you're laughing, you're almost tricking yourself that, oh, actually, I'm going to have a great day.
It's true. And then I really like that.
You know, and getting back to music again, you know, there's no better anchor and memory than the music, you know. And when people break up, they listen to really sad songs.
I know. Well, I listen to Nine Inch Nails all the time, regardless of whether I'm fabulous.
Hours, but you know, it's like pull out your playlist of songs that, you know, whether it takes you back to when you were a teenager or whenever it was when you were having such a great time. It's like just play those bangers. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, actually, I noticed at the first lockdown, I was listening to loads of music I listened to when I was like 14, 15.
Oh.
I kind of properly regressed back to, you know, the period I needed to heal when my dad died. So. But yeah, adaptogens are amazing. They really just build your resilience. So like ashwagandha. My favorite is kapakachu or mucuna. It's really good for dopamine. And it's good for the pineal gland. So it helps with the whole creativity. But again, I always stress that like don't self-herb. Try and, especially if you're on medication, don't self-herb ever. Because you'd be amazed at what interacts. So yeah, I would say that's like a big disclaimer. Don't self-herb, especially don't ever take anything if you're pregnant or breastfeeding unless you're being supervised.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you.
I always learn so much from you.
I know. I always love your coaching techniques. They're really cool.
Well,
I'm going to do that.
To swear, which I think is an absolute miracle.
I know. I was like expecting us to be like swearing like sailors.
No, I'm a bad influence on you, but thank you.
No, I worked on a trading floor, remember?
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Trauma of the banks.
Yeah, exactly.
My mum's just joined. A bit late to the party, Mum.
Oh well, good to meet her.
She can listen back. But yeah, it's good to talk to you. If anyone wants to download the mental health guide just to understand a bit more about the brain, it's on the links in my bio. And yeah.
And if you follow, actually, I've used my Your Green Room and not my
Okay.
my
you're
private
on
account.
You're on
But if
Clare
there's any of
today,
my gang around, just hit me up and I can put you in touch with Carolina for it.
yeah, and if anyone has any questions or anything after this particular talk, if they want to ask us, just shoot us a message. I'm always happy to help people with just like basic questions. I don't know. I can't type in your Green Room. It's too difficult. But yeah.
No, don't worry about it.
Brilliant. Okay.
Good. Thank you, and have fun in London.
Oh, I forgot to say, we'll be doing Thursdays, the last Thursday of the month, talking about different things in line with the planetary shifts, because I'm cosmobiologic like that. Well, that's my interest. I love doing things at specific times. So we'll be talking on the regular.
We will. You take care.
See you later. Bye.